Greetings all, peace brothers. I trust you're all getting this. I'm timing this delay to see. There you go. Yeah, I apologize again for yesterday's lack of podcast. We did have an interesting set of topics set up. Me and Messenger, excuse me, and Element's a bit busy. I imagine he's having double shifts at work. What a what a double-edged sword work is. It gives you the freedom of having a little more wealth, or a lot more, depending on your blessed position. But then it takes away from all the time and saps away your energy and spirit and general lack, general will to live. So, rest in peace, Google Live Hangouts. I think the offline Hangouts are still operational and up. Yeah, you'll have to excuse this impromptu cast. This is just a test for the new application that hopefully we'll be using from now on. Some of you will be interested to know me, Messenger Element, maybe one or two other guys will intend to do regular podcasts again, talk about our issues, talk about the situation for Western men, possibly expand to address men all over the world, as it seems our gynocentric red pill problems more widespread than just the English speaking world. And also what to do once you realized you've opened your eyes to the male disposable environment we exist in, and what to do about it. Where do we go from here? How do we process and adapt to this information, to this realization? Is there any adapting? Are we just consigned? Are we just resigned to suffer, as some people believe? Not my belief, of course. If you don't have hope, then how will you have any will? And if you don't have will, how will you have any type of success? That'll be another interesting topic of discussion. What is success? What are the measures of success? I think we all have goals, even if it's just to get up in the morning. Some of us, we have perhaps other goals like ruling the world, perhaps. But hopefully the next podcast will be the one we were supposed to have. Yesterday evening, UK time, where me and Messenger will continuing the discussion about the male mind and how our thoughts really make up are the beginnings of the makeup of the world around us. How strengthening our mind and our psyche can motivate and generate a much better lifestyle, a much better outcome, giving you better decision making. Having a better frame of mind will improve your life generally, get you to look after yourself better. A lot of people, they get to the point where they don't even want to get out of bed, don't want to clean themselves, they don't eat properly, and then of course they don't go out and about, get no exercise. Their body gets weaker, more prone to sickness. Their mind gets weaker, more prone to mental ailments. Me and Messenger will be looking at being your own worst enemy. Why do we sabotage our own opportunities? Why do we not search for opportunities? Why do we not make our opportunities? A lot of us, we seem to be resigned to letting things happen to us rather than making things happen. Some of us, we have inner demons, past events, post-traumatic stress disorder, things that maybe we did, we cannot reconcile as of yet, things that maybe were done to us that we have difficulty in living with. Perhaps these end up causing us to have detrimental coping mechanisms. The obvious one is certain addictions like alcohol, sexual promiscuity, as is pointed out in our last podcast. And I would suggest that perhaps the fact that we call these post-traumatic stress disorders and these thorns in our mind due to past events and past actions, the fact that we call these demons is indication of our lack of understanding of this area. Coupled with that is the self-fulfilling prophecy syndrome, where we're so concerned or paranoid or convinced that something's about to happen, something bad is about to happen, that we end up causing it ourselves. The self-fulfilling prophecies. These other inner demons, perhaps me, Messenger, a few of the other guys that are developing beyond the MGTOW, the manosphere, beyond the monk lifestyle, suggests that we could turn on its head. Because equally, just as post-traumatic stress disorders and traumatic events that happened in the past, regrets perhaps, that these can be turned into motivation for us, generating passion for us to do things that will help in our lives, that will correct and adjust and adapt so we make better decisions. So we're living, or we get to those circumstances that are better for us. That instead of having negative self fulfilling prophecies, let's have good self fulfilling prophecies. Let's be hopeful. Let's have good goals. Let's make positive targets. Let's get healthier. Let's get in better circumstances. Some of you are living in quite bad areas, I know. Some of you are in some downtown, high crime. It's not just the criminals, you see, that are the problem. When you're living in a high crime area or a bad area, it's also the police who are obviously paranoid due to the fact that they're working in a high crime area. They'll look at you guilty until innocent. So perhaps you can convince yourself that one day you will leave that place, one day you'll achieve those goals, that you'll do better. And in convincing yourself so, you can actually perform a self fulfilling prophecy by the positive way rather than a negative way. Another area we'll be looking at will be fighting loneliness or struggling for peace. So, the issue of, and it's a very common issue, I mean, it's a phenomena that in a world of 7 billion, apparently, between 6 and 7 million people, that people are getting mentally ill because they're lonely. Some men, not out of choice, obviously, if you're in solitary confinement, you need to find the strength to see through that. One of the suggestions me and Messenger talked about before was the focal point of your mind to travel within your own mind to create a memory, a train of thought to get through those times. But for those who are not in solitary confinement, obviously there's a lot more you can do. There's no reason why you can't hit up old friends, that you can't make new contacts, new colleagues and associates. And if you encounter a bad egg, then move on. Like I said, there's about 6 billion people on Earth, so don't worry if you run into some bumps on the road. You keep going, find those people that you can help and can help you, that are of benefit, or just out of old-fashioned chivalry, just be gentlemen, be scholarly about it. You know, practice your your sociability, your language skills. As I say, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And then there's those that are struggling for peace, those that find being in large groups, large crowds, a painful experience, embarrassing experience, find it difficult to talk to people, so end up alienating everybody, not just family, which, let's face it, in our society is almost non-existent, but also friends and people that want to help, do see, for some reason of another, some compassion towards you, and you push everybody away. I shared a video amongst my private group about people, quote, dying alone, in particularly in Japan. But I mean, I've seen it myself, working as a pharmacy delivery driver. Um, I've seen old people over long periods. Family don't visit them. or they're removed away from their home, yeah, they begin to think differently. It's not good to have too much solitude, and it's not good to be in groups all the time. The two opposites, like with all things, too much of it is bad for you. Too much group, too much group think where you're constantly trying to act a certain way, speak a certain way, trying to think what the other people will think of you, and trying to gauge the group dynamics, trying to get everybody's validation. Obviously, you're going to lose who you are. You're going to forget what kind of things you like and don't like. You're going to get into groupthink so much that eventually, when the group decide on something bad, you'll go onto it as well. We've seen this in YouTube, in the YouTube idol phenomena, where the groupthink is such that when a toxic idea is promoted by the popular one, they all jump on it. The skeptic atheists come to mind, and Amos Yee, obviously, he was a hero in the skeptic atheist because he'd been sentenced to prison for religious crimes. So they exalted him a hero, and then one day he just comes out with a series of discussions saying how it should be perfectly legal, socially acceptable to uh, have sexual relationships with not kids but 2-year-olds as young. So as long as the kids enjoy it, then it should be fine. This was the skeptic atheist superstar Amos Yee. So obviously, and he came up. He had something like over 50,000 subscribers when I came across him. Obviously, as you guys know, I'm not part of that group whatsoever. Of course, the opposite being if you're too lonely, like some of the the groups known as like the TFLers, where they're now so caught up in their own little world. And it's interesting that they've put themselves in solitary confinement for so long, that their own world is now made real to them. They've had such a lack of input from other perspectives and other people that their own world is all they know, whether it's accurate or inaccurate. Their own world is all that they know now, and more often than not, it will become distorted. Our perspectives are limited. Our one set of eyes and one set of ears only see in one direction and only hear from one perspective. So of course, eventually you will drift away from reality. And a lot of these people that end up hurting themselves and hurting others without needing any prolonged examination, you'll see that their real reality is extremely distorted. So yeah, too much solitude is not good. As Rudyard Kipling once said, you can speak to crowds and keep your dignity. Sorry for paraphrasing. You can walk with crowds without losing your dignity. You can speak with kings without losing the common touch. You can be alone. You can be productive in your solitude, but without going crazy and without thinking you're king and emperor of the world, like a lot of these pseudo intellectuals that think, due to their DNA, they're superior to every other different type of DNA. And also, you can speak to crowds, you can address other people, and you can make use of that. You can learn from them, they learn from you. The benefit from helping other people is difficult to articulate, but I would say it's tangible. I know quite often we can be disappointed when people aren't grateful, but I would suggest in those circumstances you examine your intentions. Are you helping other people because it's their thanks you want, or does it help you in some way? So, as you guys might have already concluded, it's about striking a balance. So, me and Messenger will be talking about that, fighting loneliness or struggling for peace, and then we'll be discussing the fragile mind. How easily do we succumb to manipulation? Do our minds break as easily as our bodies? Fascinating subject. I think a subject that's hardly ever addressed anywhere, in fact, until it's too late, of course. Our fragile minds, how marketing, how propaganda, how government lies distract us, manipulate us, tell us to do things that are not right, that sculpture the society in a detrimental way, that keep us from doing things we should be doing, to reaching potentials that we could do. Come to think of it, the greatest men, the best thinkers, the engineers and designers, they all had to fight at some point local authorities or some things, some people to achieve their goals. So, what chance does that give us little people? Do our minds break as easy as our bodies are? If you've been listening to our discussions, I would say definitely. I don't think we value or understand the fragility of our minds, whether you're young or old. I guess when you're young, things aren't happening fast enough. The change is not as you would deem it appropriate. So you get frustrated. Sometimes you can get angry, and you make the situation worse, which makes your belief that the change is not appropriate, which ties into the injustice, and obviously injustice within society. Institutionalized injustice is probably the worst. Or you're slightly older, in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, where um, so many events, so many letdowns, so many betrayals, the lack of promises, the, the lack of promises being fulfilled, it's now taken a toll on your mind. Some would say it's taken a toll on your spirit, but how you view the world now and how you view others, how um, cautious you are, how susceptible you are to welcoming strangers is reduced, how your expectations are almost gone. I mean, too much of this can lead to quite negative things. Like someone's just trying to be nice, and you have a grumpy old ass, then that's not going to be a good thing, is it? Obviously, we all need some level of reservation, but too much suspicion can lead to paranoia. We've seen those people that think everyone's out to get them, or the women out to get them, or the certain type of certain group out to get them. Come to the point they think they can't trust anybody. It's just them versus the world. Come on, guys, you can't get to that, man. Everyone's out to get you. It's just you, is it? That's not a good state of mind to be in, gentlemen. Another topic we'll be talking about is, which will be linked to that actually, is how do we save ourselves then? What's the process? What are the actions we need to take? Um, can we be so separated from the rest of the world to a point where their their destruction will not affect us? Or alternately, do having some altruism help or act as a form of self-preservation? Do helping others mean that they'll help us or give them inspiration to help us? Hence, helping others is a form of self-preservation. And then we'll be going back to mental health, the categories of mental illness, how many are actually relevant, and how many uh, will be persistent amongst the male population, amongst the groups that we talk to. And lastly, we'll be talking about this sale of men's suffering, how people are cashing in on the tragedies and horror stories that men talk about, their imprisonment for false allegations of rape, false allegations of paedophilia, the rampant belief that every man is guilty and every woman is innocent, um, how certain men who, and boys, let's face it, who have never had these things happen to them, using these stories to sell their own personality, to promote their brand of solutions. Um, we probably won't talk much about on that. That's probably been touched upon. But it'll be interesting to hear you guys listening out there, your view on that. And lastly, I posed the question to Messenger: Does does man's inability to explore his mental suffering prevent him from healing? So all the things we've talked about, it's difficult to talk about because it's very doubtful any of you would have talked about these things with anybody else. Um, our culture dictates that men don't talk about their pain, that men don't talk about their past. Perhaps for some it's harder than for others. Um, Most difficult of all is if we talk about our mistakes, if we confess. Perhaps I suggested these are reasons why the PTSD persists. Perhaps these are the reasons why there's no progress in a man's mental health. Perhaps there's hidden memories and thoughts that we've tried to bury deep inside because we don't want to feel that pain anymore. Maybe some of us have been successful in burying memories. Maybe it would require some extraordinary measures to remember them. But we remember them eventually, nevertheless. Sometimes it can just be a place that we pass once a year, or a face that we haven't seen in years. Piece of music, a clip from a film. All it takes is a sound or a sight, and all of a sudden, that pain is all too easily revisited again. So perhaps it's better to heal it, to acknowledge what happened, learn how to deal with it, learn to avoid the same mistakes, learn to put the blame on those responsible and take the blame if it was you. Address those demons, take on those demons. It could be having to make an apology or make amends if it was you, or having to learn to forgive, or confront those who wronged you. To forgive or to confront. These are the discussions we'll be having. So that's my channel announcement, gentlemen. I hope you'll be looking forward to these discussions as I am.